$52,000. Merry Christmas to you too. Hi, I'm Emily Dawson, 27 years old. And if you've ever wondered what betrayal feels like when it comes served cold with tinsel and fake smiles, let me tell you, it burns. Imagine getting ghosted by your own family on Christmas. No invite, no call, nothing. Not even a text. My own parents, my sister, all of them. The people who, for my entire life, have orchestrated elaborate holiday productions, suddenly decided I no longer merited an appearance in their perfectly curated festive scene. One day I was part of the family portrait, the next I was airbrushed out, leaving behind a gaping, lonely hole. But it wasn't just the absence that stung. That I could have eventually processed. It was what followed, a mere 2 days later, that truly twisted the knife. Bam, a registered letter at my door. The kind that requires a signature that feels impossibly heavy in your hand, even before you know its contents. And inside, an invoice, a cold, stark, professionally printed document demanding $52,000 for my bratty younger sister's totaled BMW, a car I supposedly gifted her years ago. And the kicker? Apparently, I'm somehow responsible for its destruction, which occurred during a DUI crash on Christmas night, no less. That was the exact, precise moment something inside me snapped. My heart didn't just break. It hardened. The confusion melted into a searing clarity. All those years, all the times I'd been there, all the sacrifices I'd made for them, suddenly coalesced into this single, crushing revelation. I wasn't just ghosted. I was eliminated. Not because I'd done something wrong, but because I was no longer useful in their grand scheme, except as an ATM. Have you ever been treated like a walking wallet, a bank account with legs, by the very people who should love you unconditionally? Have you been used, manipulated, and then discarded when your utility ran out? Tell me below. Because if you felt that sting of familial betrayal, that raw ache of being seen as a resource rather than a person, then you'll understand what came next. This isn't just my story. It's a story for anyone who's ever been pushed too far by the people who should have had their back. And if you're ready for a story of betrayal, secrets, and sweet, satisfying revenge, hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss a second of this roller coaster. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this plays out my family. The Dawsons of suburban Ohio. If you looked at us from the outside, you'd see the perfect Midwestern tableau. Big house, manicured lawn, 2 well-dressed daughters. We were the epitome of tradition-loving, if a little loud, and definitely judgmental. Every Christmas was an event, a performance really meticulously planned and executed by my mother, Margaret, who moved through the holidays like a conductor leading a grand orchestra. Growing up, I remember the endless baking, the carols, the matching family pajamas, and almost suffocating amount of togetherness. It was expected, an annual ritual, as unchanging as the winter snow. And then there was this year, December 24th, 2023. I sat in my small apartment, the only light coming from the flickering screen of my laptop, reflecting off the empty ramen bowl. No twinkling lights. No familiar scent of my mom's gingerbread. No cacophony of family chatter and forced cheer. Just silence. A silence that amplified the ache in my chest, a hollow echo in the space where family should have been. For the first time in my entire life, I wasn't invited. No phone call. No text. No email. Not even a passive-aggressive group message that subtly excluded me. Just nothing. The confusion festered into a growing hurt. What had I done? Had I unconsciously crossed some invisible line? My mind replayed every interaction, every conversation, searching for a clue, a reason for this unprecedented exclusion. Was it my new job in IT security, which they always subtly belittled as computer stuff instead of something respectable like my father's law career? Was it my decision to live alone, resisting their not-so-subtle pressures to find a husband and settle down like a proper Midwestern girl? Or was it something deeper, something I had always suspected but never dared to acknowledge? I scrolled through social media, a morbid curiosity compelling me. There they were, my family. My mother, beaming in front of a colossal Christmas tree, perfectly coiffed. My father with his usual stoic half-smile, and Kayla, my younger sister, dazzling in a borrowed dress, looking every bit the golden child, surrounded by what looked like their annual extravagant spread. The photos were tagged, commented on by distant relatives, all expressing joy and admiration for the Dawson family's festive spirit. And I wasn't in a single one, not even a passing mention in the comments. It was as if I had simply ceased to exist, vanished from their carefully constructed reality. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, the silence in my apartment felt louder than any argument I'd ever had with them. It hummed with unspoken rejections, with years of subtle slights and emotional distance. It was the sound of a family severing ties, not with a dramatic declaration, but with a chilling, calculated quiet. And I had no idea why. Not why THE quiet had been almost deafening for 2 days. Christmas Day was a blur of trying to distract myself with Netflix and frozen dinners, pretending the world outside my apartment wasn't celebrating without me. It felt strange, like I was living in a parallel universe where my family didn't exist, or more accurately, where I didn't exist to them. Then, on December 27th, the illusion of peace shattered. A firm knock on my door. I rarely get unexpected visitors, so my guard was up. Through the peephole, I saw a courier. He held a clipboard and a thick, certified envelope. My heart gave a little flutter of anxiety. Certified mail from family usually meant one of two things: a self-serving holiday letter detailing all their accomplishments, or some kind of veiled legal notification from my father. This, however, felt different, more ominous. I signed begrudgingly, the polite smile I offered feeling brittle on my face. The envelope was heavy, stiff. My name and address were printed with an alarming formality. I carried it to my kitchen table, my hands trembling slightly as I tore it open. Inside, nestled amongst several sheets of legal-sized paper, was the invoice. A bright, glaring piece of paper with a bold, almost mocking total at the bottom, $52,000. My breath hitched. $52,000. For what? My eyes scanned the detailed breakdown, quickly landing on the description: damages incurred to 2017 BMW X5, VIN redacted, following major incident on 25 December 2023. A cold wave washed over me. A BMW X5. Kayla's car. The one I had bought for her 6 years ago for her high school graduation, fully paid for, a gesture of sisterly love and pride. I remembered the day I gave it to her, the squeals of delight, the hugs. I remembered thinking how happy I was to do something so big for her. Now that memory curdled. The accompanying documents explained everything, or at least their twisted version of everything. Kayla apparently had been involved in a serious accident on Christmas night. A DUI crash. My sister, the golden child, the perfect social media influencer, had totaled her BMW while driving under the influence. But the real shocker, the manipulative twist that truly revealed their hand, was the claim that because the car had been a gift from me, and still technically titled in my name, a technicality I had overlooked, trusting they would transfer it fully as promised, I was financially responsible for the damages. Not just the physical damage to the car itself, but also potential liability for other parties involved, medical expenses, and even emotional distress for Kayla herself. It was a thinly veiled threat, a meticulously crafted document designed to scare me into immediate compliance. My parents, the same people who couldn't be bothered to invite me for Christmas dinner, had orchestrated this. They knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't just about money. It was about power, control, and a lifetime of manipulation laid bare. The cold Christmas wasn't an oversight. It was a prelude. They'd cut me off emotionally, and now they were coming for my finances. It was clear. I was nothing more than a resource to be tapped, a convenient fallback for their golden child's mistakes. The $52,000 invoice wasn't a request. It was a demand delivered with chilling precision. And in that moment, the hurt I felt from being excluded transformed into something far more potent: anger. Kayla, my younger sister, 4 years my junior, but light years ahead of me in the family hierarchy. From the moment she was born, she was adored, showered with affection and privilege that I, as the elder, often felt I had to earn. She was beautiful effortlessly, so with sparkling eyes and a smile that could charm anyone, even when she was being truly awful. And she was. Awful, that is. Manipulative perfection wrapped in a pretty bow, that was Kayla. Her entire life, mistakes were not just forgiven. They were rationalized, covered up, and often blamed on me. I remember countless instances. When we were in middle school, my favorite sweater, a soft cashmere gift from a grandmother who actually saw me, vanished. Days later, Kayla was wearing it, stretched out and stained. When I confronted her, she looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes and claimed she thought it was hers. My mother instantly sided with Kayla, suggesting I was being dramatic and that it was just a sweater. I ended up apologizing to Kayla for accusing her. This was a pattern. My belongings would magically appear in her closet. My art supplies would be used up, my ideas presented as hers. And every time, I was made to feel like the unreasonable one. In high school, it escalated. One time, my parents received a call from the principal about a prank involving defaced school property. I was grounded for a month, no questions asked. A week later, I overheard Kayla giggling on the phone with her friend, recounting how she had pulled off the prank but made sure that little rat Emily would get blamed. My stomach had dropped. When I tried to tell my parents, they already had their narrative firmly in place. I was trying to shift blame. I was jealous of Kayla's popularity. The emotional burden of being the scapegoat daughter, the one who always took the fall, became a heavy cloak I wore. Then there were the credit card incidents. More than once, I'd get a notification about unusual activity on my card, usually for designer clothes or expensive meals. Each time, when I'd trace it back, it was Kayla. Her excuse? Oh, I thought it was Mom's extra card. My parents would then sigh, shake their heads, and pay it off, but never without a lecture to me about being more careful with my finances, as if I had somehow enabled her. It was an unspoken rule. Kayla's happiness and convenience trumped everything, including my financial well-being and my peace of mind. She was Mommy's favorite, the golden child whose mistakes were never truly hers, only unfortunate circumstances. She was the one destined for greatness, even if that greatness was built on a foundation of everyone else's effort and sacrifice. And I was the convenient shadow, the one always expected to understand, to forgive, to provide. The sting of that $52,000 invoice wasn't just about the money. It was the culmination of years of her getting away with everything, and me being the default cleanup crew. It was a clear message that nothing had changed, and that their expectation for me to be her ATM, her safety net, was as strong as ever. And that was a reality I was no longer willing to accept. And my parents, Richard and Mar Garay Dawson, their mindset was a meticulously constructed facade, a carefully managed illusion of perfection. My father, Richard, a retired corporate lawyer, ran our household not with love or warmth, but with legalism, guilt, and subtle threats. Every family decision felt like a courtroom proceeding, meticulously documented, every perceived slight recorded, every act of disobedience met with a cold, calculated consequence. He was obsessed with appearances, with brandishing our family as a shining example of success, propriety, and moral rectitude to the outside world. Then there was my mother, Margaret. A former local pageant queen, she had smoothly transitioned her talents from the stage to the suburban home. She didn't just curate our family's image. She owned it, controlled it with an iron fist disguised in kid gloves. Every holiday, every gathering, every casual dinner was a theatrical production, with my father as the director, my mother as the demanding star, and Kayla as the chosen ingenue. And me? I was a prop useful when needed to bolster their image, shoved aside when I threatened to disrupt the carefully crafted narrative. This wasn't just about the holidays. Their warped worldview permeated every aspect of our lives. They believed family was a unit, not of emotional support, but of collective gain, a pyramid scheme designed to benefit them at the top. And I, the eldest daughter, was the ever-reliable contributor. For a decade, I had been their unspoken insurance policy, their quiet cash cow. I remembered the hushed, urgent phone calls from my dad, always prefaced with, "Emily, This is a family matter, very sensitive. It started subtly after his corporate law firm faced some serious IRS scrutiny. Suddenly, there were emergencies, a temporary cash flow issue for what I later realized was a luxury vacation, a vital investment opportunity that conveniently lined his pockets, helping out with the house payments when they decided a full renovation was in order. My contributions were framed not as loans, but as my duty, my obligation to the family. They promised repayment, of course, but it never came. Instead, the amount kept growing, an open tab they expected me to keep filling without question. My successful IT career, which I'd built on my own despite their dismissals, became their personal piggy bank. But now, with Kayla's latest disaster, a DUI no less, and a totaled car, they'd made it crystal clear. The need for my emotional presence, my loyalty, my attachment was gone. I was no longer needed for pretense, for the family photo op, or for their emotional support system. My utility had narrowed to one function, the wallet. The Christmas exclusion wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate statement. They wanted the money, but they didn't want me. It was the coldest, most transactional display of familial love I had ever witnessed, and it ignited a fire in me, a determination that this pyramid scheme, built on my silent sacrifices, was about to come crashing down. Because if all they needed was my money, then I was going to make sure they earned every single penny, and then some, in a way they never expected. That $52,000 invoice wasn't just a demand for money. It was a gauntlet thrown down. It ignited a fire fueled by years of resentment, of being overlooked and undervalued. My first instinct, the one they probably expected, was to panic, to scramble, to figure out how to appease them. But the new Emily, the one forged in the ice-cold Christmas and sharpened by the sting of betrayal, had a different idea. It was time to investigate. My IT job skills, usually confined to securing networks and troubleshooting complex systems, suddenly felt like my most potent weapon. I knew how to dig. I knew how to find what people thought was hidden. My parents, in their arrogance, had no idea just how deep I could go. This wasn't just about refusing to pay, it was about dismantling their entire narrative. My first target was the car accident itself. The invoice mentioned a DUI. That was public record, or at least accessible through certain channels. I started by looking for official police reports, incident logs, anything related to a BMW crash in Ohio on Christmas night. It didn't take long to find the basic information: time, location, confirmed DUI. But then I dug deeper. I tried to pull Kayla's credit report, expecting to see a history of reckless spending, which I did. But I also noticed something else, a series of recent, significant transactions that seemed out of place, not typical for her usual influencer income. Large sums moving to unfamiliar accounts. It was intriguing, but not directly related to the crash. Yet. Next, phone records. Difficult to access legally, but there are always ways to get a glimpse, especially if you have a little technical know-how and a network of contacts. I wasn't doing anything illegal, just using public information and professional tools to trace digital breadcrumbs. I focused on the hours leading up to and immediately following the crash. Who was Kayla talking to? What were her movements? That's when I found a series of texts from an unfamiliar number, exchanged just minutes before the crash. The tone was urgent, demanding. And then a call from that same number, lasting only a few seconds, made after the crash, before emergency services were notified. The real gold mine, however, was in Kayla's public social media posts. She was an influencer, after all, and influencers document everything. I sifted through her Instagram, TikTok, and even some lesser-known platforms she used. I looked at the days and hours leading up to Christmas Day. And there it was, in a fleeting story she'd posted just hours before the crash, quickly deleted but not quickly enough for the internet's memory. It was a selfie video, shaky, disoriented, clearly showing her in the passenger seat of her BMW. The view out the window confirmed the location was near the crash site, and in the reflection on the window, faint but undeniable, was someone else in the driver's seat. Someone else. Kayla wasn't alone. And more importantly, she wasn't the one driving. This changed everything. It wasn't just a DUI for Kayla anymore. It was a cover-up. And if they were covering up that fact, what else were they hiding? The entire foundation of their $52,000 invoice, their claim that I was responsible for Kayla's reckless actions, began to crumble. The pieces were starting to fit, forming a far more sinister picture than I could have ever imagined. My investigation had just begun, and I knew with chilling certainty that the Dawsons had no idea what was coming. Armed with my newfound discoveries, the pieces of their deception falling into place, I knew I had to call them. Not to plead, not to negotiate, but to confront. I wanted to hear their lies directly, to see if they would still brazenly try to exploit me. I called my mother first. Her voice, usually so saccharine and performative, was tight with what I assumed was feigned concern. "Emily, finally. We've been so worried about you not returning our calls about. This whole unfortunate situation with Kayla. Worried? Or worried I wouldn't pay?" I cut her off, my voice steely. "And what situation? The one your daughter caused, or the one you're trying to pin on me?" The pleasant facade crumbled. "Emily, how can you speak like that? This is a family matter. We need to stick together. Kayla is suffering. It's just a small amount, considering." "Small amount? $52,000 is not a small amount, Mom. And Kayla's suffering? What about the fact that she wasn't even driving the car? What about the cover-up?" The words were out before I could fully censor them. There was a dead silence on the line, heavy and telling. Then, a quick shuffling noise, and my father's booming voice laced with legalistic threat. "Emily, this is your father. There's no need for these outlandish accusations. Kayla was driving. She's admitted as much. This car was a gift from you. You're responsible. We're simply asking you to do the right thing for your sister, for the family. The right thing is for you to acknowledge that Kayla was in the passenger seat, Dad. I've seen the evidence. Her social media, the police report details. You're hiding something." His voice hardened, dropping all pretense of familial concern. "This conversation is unproductive. If you refuse to take responsibility, we will have no choice but to pursue this through legal channels. You wouldn't want to jeopardize your career, would you, Emily? Or deal with protracted litigation?" Then, behind him, a muffled snicker. It was Kayla. I could hear her, indistinct but undeniably there, laughing at my predicament, at their blatant manipulation. It was the sound of complete, utter disdain. The betrayal was complete. That snicker was the last nail in the coffin of any lingering hope for reconciliation. There was no redemption arc here, no tearful apologies, no admission of guilt. Just a brazen, arrogant plan to exploit me, to drain me financially and emotionally for a problem they had created and covered up. They truly believed they could get away with it, that I would fold under their pressure and threats. But they were wrong. So utterly, fundamentally wrong. In that moment, staring at the cold walls of my apartment, I realized I had wasted enough energy on anger, on hurt. It was time for a plan, my plan. One they would never, ever see coming. This wasn't about vindictiveness. It was about justice. My justice. And it was going to be sweet. After that agonizing, infuriating phone call, the sting of betrayal solidified into a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was clear-headed and determined. Their threat of legal action? A bluff, I suspected, or at least one I could counter. My IT job skills had helped me uncover the truth, but now I needed legal acumen. I decided to start small with a free legal clinic in town. I walked in, clutching my bag containing the dreaded invoice, printouts of Kayla's social media, and the rudimentary police report details I'd managed to find. I laid it all out for the pro bono lawyer, a kind but no-nonsense woman named Sarah. As I explained the situation, particularly the car being a gift and still in my name, Sarah's eyebrows rose. That's a tricky one," she mused. "On the surface, if it's still titled to you, liability could fall to you. But the intent of a gift, the actual use, and the fact that you weren't operating the vehicle are all crucial points." She began to explain the nuances. The car was a gift to Kayla, irrespective of whose name was technically on the title. My parents had promised to sort out the title transfer. Their failure to do so, while inconvenient, did not automatically make me liable for Kayla's actions. Especially not when there was clear evidence that Kayla was not even the driver at the time of the crash. "This is good, Emily," Sarah said, tapping her pen against the printout of Kayla's passenger seat selfie. "Very good. If you can prove she wasn't driving, that changes the entire landscape of liability. And if they're trying to hide that, it creates a whole host of other problems for them, legally speaking. Fraud, obstruction, potentially even filing false reports if they've pushed a narrative that isn't true." The deeper she delved, the more I understood the leverage I held. Sarah explained that while they could try to pursue me, I had significant ammunition to punch holes in their case. The lack of proper title transfer to Kayla, while initially a potential weakness for me, could also be flipped into an admission that they were attempting to shift financial burden onto me without due diligence. My parents' history of financial manipulation, which I had detailed, could also be brought to bear. "You have a strong case for not being responsible for this car, Emile. Why?" Sarah concluded. "And you have an even stronger case for countersuing them for fraudulent debt collection, harassment, and potentially even defamation, considering how this could affect your reputation. With enough documentation and clear contradiction, you could not only bury their case but bury them in debt." A plan began to form in my mind, precise and chillingly satisfying. I wasn't just defending myself. I was going on the offensive. My skills in IT, coupled with this newfound legal understanding, would allow me to prepare a counterattack with digital precision. I would meticulously document every cent, every misstep, every manipulation. I would expose their hypocrisy and their deceit. They wanted to play hardball? I would show them what true precision and leverage looked like. They had threatened litigation and played the victim. Now, I would prepare my counter-invoice, my cease and desist, and a warning that they would never forget. And unlike their clumsy attempts, mine would be backed by irrefutable proof. Free Legal Clinic provided the framework, but the real work was mine. I locked myself in my apartment, fueled by spite and copious amounts of iced coffee. The Dawsons wanted an invoice? I'd give them an invoice. But unlike their flimsy, baseless demand, mine would be a masterpiece of meticulous accounting and undeniable truth. I spent days, then weeks, digging through old bank statements, faded receipts, and fragmented memories. Every family emergency, investment opportunity, loan, and gift I had ever made to them was meticulously recorded. My IT skills, usually reserved for complex data analysis, were now laser-focused on my personal ledger. There was the business loan to my father when his firm was facing IRS heat, subtly disguised as an investment in a new venture that never materialized. The tuition payments for Kayla's exorbitant fashion school, which my parents insisted I cover just until her trust fund matures. The monthly rent cover for their various vacation properties. Even the supposedly forgotten credit card bills from Kayla's lavish spending sprees that I always ended up quietly paying to avoid family drama. I even included the smaller, seemingly insignificant transactions that had added up over the years. The times I'd picked up the tab for entire family dinners, expensive birthday presents for my parents and Kayla that were never reciprocated, the money I'd quietly sent my mother for spa days when she complained of stress. Each entry was a tiny cut, accumulating into a gaping wound. The final document was a brutal, undeniable testament to their financial exploitation. It ran a staggering 20 pages, each line item a stark reminder of their avarice, complete with dates, amounts, and detailed descriptions. I was thorough, leaving no room for argument or denial. The grand total: $88,642. More than $36,000 above their ridiculous $52,000 demand. It wasn't just a repayment. It was a reckoning. I meticulously formatted it, ensuring it looked as official and intimidating as possible, a mirror to the invoice they had sent me. I used formal language, crisp fonts, and even included a table of contents. No theatrical flourishes, just cold, hard facts. This was a document designed to hit them where it truly hurt, their carefully constructed image, and their pocketbooks. Then, for good measure, I drafted a cease and desist letter. Sarah had given me the template, and I filled it with all the precise legal terminology. It warned them, in no uncertain terms, that any further attempts to collect the fraudulent $52,000 debt would be met with immediate and aggressive countersuit for defamation, fraudulent debt collection, and emotional distress. I highlighted the part about the car not being titled in Kayla's name and the strong evidence that she wasn't the driver, noting that these facts complicated their already tenuous claim. It was a package designed for maximum impact. I printed everything, multiple copies, and put it all in a thick envelope. Just as they had done, I took it to the post office and sent it certified mail, return receipt requested. The small green card would come back to me, a physical confirmation that they had received their due. As I dropped the envelope into the slot, a profound sense of calm settled over me. It wasn't about the money anymore, not entirely. It was about reclamation. Reclaiming my dignity, my agency, and finally, my financial freedom from the family who saw me only as a limitless resource. This was my Christmas gift to them, the bill for their behavior. And it was just the beginning that sending that invoice and cease and desist letter was merely the opening salvo. It was a private message, a warning shot across their bow. But my ultimate target wasn't just my parents' financial manipulation. It was Kayla's entire carefully constructed facade, the one that had allowed her to escape consequences her entire life. It was time for the world, especially her world, to see her for who she truly was. This wasn't just about financial leverage. It was about public leverage. Kayla, the influencer. Her entire career hinged on an image of effortless beauty, sponsored perfection, and aspirational living. Her followers adored her. Brands threw money at her for endorsements. I knew precisely where to strike. Using the anonymous channels I honed in my IT security job, I began. I gathered all the evidence, the screenshot of her fleeting, quickly deleted stories showing her in the passenger seat just before the crash, snippets of the police report detailing the DUI and the initial statement, which I now knew was a lie, and a few damning texts between her and the unidentified person who was actually driving. I compiled it all into a concise, undeniable package. Then I identified her most crucial brand partners, her most engaged followers, and even some industry-specific forums and news channels that covered influencer scandals. I wanted this to hit hard, fast, and irreversibly. I crafted a generic, anonymous message attaching the evidence without comment. No emotional pleas, no personal attacks, just the facts. I sent it out into the digital ether, targeting her social media accounts specifically. I didn't tag her directly from my main account, of course. Instead, I created a very temporary, untraceable account and used it to post the damning screenshots and link to public DUI arrest records directly on her most recent, perfectly lit, sponsored post. I tagged some acquaintances, friends, and even coworkers I knew followed her, ensuring maximum visibility initially. The response was immediate. Within hours, the comments section of Kayla's post devolved into chaos. Is this true? OMG, that selfie video. DUI? I thought you were all about healthy living. Her loyal fans turned into a mob, demanding answers, expressing shock and outrage. The internet, ever hungry for drama, quickly picked it up. Screenshots of my anonymous posts went viral. One of her major sponsored deals, a fitness and wellness brand, was the first to react. They released a statement expressing their dismay and announcing the immediate termination of their contract with her due to recent revelations inconsistent with brand values. Soon after, others followed suit. Her influencer image, meticulously built over years of carefully curated content, crashed down around her like a house of cards. Her true character, the spoiled, manipulative, reckless individual my family had always shielded, was finally visible to the world. It wasn't just her followers. Her friends and colleagues in the influencer world, many of whom had secretly resented her meteoric rise, piled on. Discussion forums that once praised her engagement now dissected her downfall. Screenshots of my posts, which I had engineered to propagate rapidly, were everywhere. The satisfaction wasn't just in seeing her lose her deals, it was in watching her carefully constructed world unravel. For so long, she had wielded her beauty and charm as weapons, using her digital platform to promote a false narrative. Now, the very tools she used for manipulation were being used to expose her. The golden child, finally tarnished, exposed for the ungrateful, entitled person she really was. It was a public humiliation that no amount of spin or damage control could fix. And I knew it was having the desired effect because the phone calls from my family started soon after the TG storm broke exactly as I predicted. My phone, which had been eerily quiet since the Christmas ghosting, suddenly erupted. And it wasn't from my father, despite his earlier threats. It was my mother. She called, her voice shrill, bordering on hysterical. "Emily, what have you done? What is this? My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Kayla's sponsors are dropping her. This is terrible. Why would you do this to your own family?" The irony was not lost on me. My own family, Mom? Miley, who ghosted me for Christmas and then tried to strong-arm me into paying $52,000 for Kayla's mess. My voice remained calm, a stark contrast to her flustered accusations. I simply showed the world the truth you've all been so desperate to hide. It seems Kayla's brand couldn't handle a little honesty. Take it down. Right now. People are saying awful things. This is destroying us. How can you be so cruel? Her words were punctuated by choked sobs, though I doubted their sincerity. It wasn't about Kayla's well-being. It was about the shattered facade, the ruined reputation. Their carefully cultivated image was crumbling. Cruel, Mom? I counted softly. Was it cruel when you refused to acknowledge Kayla wasn't driving? Was it cruel when you tried to extort me? Was it cruel when you cast me out of the family fold on Christmas? I let the questions hang in the air. Family shouldn't do this to family, you're right. So why did you? Then my father got on the line, his usual composed, lawyerly tone replaced by a strained, barely contained rage. "Emily, this is slander. We'll sue you into oblivion. You'll never work in this town again." He launched into a tirade of threats, but I remained unperturbed. "Dad," I interrupted, my voice sharp, "is that really the fight you want to pick right now?" Because while I was digging into all the details surrounding Kayla's accident, I came across some rather interesting discrepancies in your old company's IRS filings from about 10 years ago. It seems some of those family emergency payments I made might have looked a lot like undeclared income. Or perhaps even tax fraud. The effect was instantaneous and profound. He went quiet. The blustering rage vanished, replaced by a stunned, heavy silence. He knew. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He probably thought those old trails were cold, but my IT skills meant I knew exactly where to look for digital ghosts. The threat of legal action against me evaporated, replaced by the chilling realization that I held far more damaging information on them. After that, the phone calls shifted. From my mother, a desperate, pathetic attempt at emotional manipulation, laced with apologies that felt hollow and forced. "Please, darling, just this once, for old time's sake. Don't you miss us?" From my father, a grudging, wary silence punctuated by the occasional lawyerly probe testing the waters, trying to ascertain how much more I knew. And Kayla? Her texts ranged from incandescent rage, all caps and exclamation points, vowing vengeance, to sudden, pathetic apologies. "Please, Emily, I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry. I miss you. Please, I need my career back." But I didn't buy any of it. Not a single word. Their desperation was palpable, but it was self-preservation, not genuine remorse. The family meltdown was complete. The carefully constructed facade had shattered, and beneath it, I saw only fear and self-interest. It was a chaotic symphony, the crescendo of years of their manipulation finally coming to a head. And I was the conductor. TG family meltdown was exactly what I needed. It removed any remaining shred of doubt, any lingering guilt, any flicker of hope for reconciliation. Their true colors, exposed by the harsh light of consequence, were ugly and self-serving. They didn't miss me. They missed my compliance. They missed my money. With a deep breath and a sense of absolute clarity, I began the process of cutting them out of my life completely and irrevocably. I blocked my mother, father, and Kayla from my phone and all social media platforms. Every single one. No more desperate calls, no more manipulative texts, no more seeing their curated lives. It felt like severing a cancerous limb, painful but necessary for survival. The silence that followed wasn't the lonely one of Christmas Eve. It was a peaceful, liberating quiet. Their attempts to chase money faded as quickly as their threats. My father, the shrewd lawyer, knew when he was beat. The IRS discrepancies I'd alluded to were enough to make him back off. He knew the risk of further investigation into his past financial dealings far outweighed any potential gain from trying to squeeze me for Kayla's car. There were a few half-hearted emails from his legal team, formal but lacking bite, which I promptly forwarded to Sarah, my pro bono lawyer. She handled them with a swift, legally sound counter that shut them down completely. It was clear they had surrendered. They wouldn't touch me again. The weeks that followed were strange. The constant hum of familial obligation, the subtle pressure of their expectations, had been a background noise my entire life. Its absence felt like a phantom limb ache, a curious emptiness that slowly, beautifully filled with peace. I started focusing on myself, on my career, and on building genuine connections with friends who truly valued me, not what I could do for them. As the next Christmas approached, I felt none of the dread or loneliness that had characterized the previous year. Instead, I booked a trip, not to a family gathering, but to a place far away from Ohio, from the snow, and from the ghosts of Christmases past. I found myself on a balcony in San Diego, the warm Pacific breeze on my face, a glass of crisp white wine in my hand, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. There were no elaborate decorations, no forced smiles, no judgmental glances. Just the sound of distant waves and the quiet satisfaction of a battle won. I spent Christmas Day exploring the city, eating delicious food, and feeling a lightness I hadn't realized I'd been missing. It was the most peaceful, most genuinely joyful Christmas I had ever known. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for an invitation or dreading a phone call or bracing myself for some new manipulation. I was simply free, free from their expectations, their demands, their toxicity, free to define my own life on my own terms. The quiet was no longer loud with unspoken grievances. It was simply serene. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift I could have ever given myself. Looking back, it's hard to reconcile the Emily who spent Christmas Eve alone with ramen, brokenhearted and confused, with the Emily I am today. The scars of that betrayal, of years of being the family scapegoat and ATM, are still there. They've shaped me, undoubtedly, but they're not wounds anymore. They're reminders. Reminders of my strength, my resilience, and the invaluable lesson I learned about boundaries and self-worth. The freedom that came from finally saying enough was astonishing. It wasn't just freedom from their financial demands or their emotional manipulation. It was freedom from the invisible chains of expectation, from the desperate desire for their approval that had unconsciously tethered me for so long. When you realize the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are actually operating under a strict set of transactional rules, it's devastating. But it's also incredibly clarifying. It forces you to look inward and realize that their warped version of love isn't love at all, and you deserve so much more. My journey wasn't about bitterness or even purely revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. It was about standing up for myself, something I'd rarely done effectively with my family before. It was about recognizing my value, independent of my utility to them. And in doing so, I discovered a different kind of wealth, peace of mind, self-respect, and the profound joy of genuine connection. The truth is, family can be chosen. Sometimes the biological ties that bind us are actually the ones that strangle us. And walking away, even from those you once loved deeply, can be the kindest, most courageous act you ever undertake for yourself. It's hard, yes. The grief for what you wished you had, for the family you thought you deserved, is real. But holding on to something toxic only poisons you. So, if you're out there feeling like an outsider in your own home or being used as a bank with no personality, remember my story. Remember that you have the power to draw your line in the sand. You have the right to demand respect. And you absolutely have the right to walk away. The loudest silence in your life might not be the absence of family, but the quiet of your own peace. And that, I promise you, is the best gift of all. It's the gift I gave myself, and it's priceless.